The Mafia boss was already halfway into the rain when the little boy behind him whispered, "Dad." He stopped with one hand on the metal stairwell door, his black coat catching the blue hallway light, while the apartment behind him stayed warm and yellow around a mother too tired to speak. For one long second, nobody moved, because the word had landed in the wrong place and still sounded like it belonged there. The boy stood barefoot on the cheap welcome mat with cartoon rockets faded almost white from years of use. One sleeve of his gray hoodie hung over his hand. His other hand held a paper cup from the diner downstairs, the one the man had bought after noticing the child's cough before the mother did. Inside the apartment, a small lamp burned beside a stack of unpaid envelopes, and a red plastic dinosaur lay on its side near the door like it had fallen while running. The mother reached for her son's shoulder, slow enough not to scare him. But her eyes never left the man in the hall. She knew men like him from the city's quiet warnings, the kind people lowered their voices around, the kind whose shoes never squeaked on wet tile because they never hurried unless someone else was already out of time. He had no reason to be gentle. That was what made it worse. He turned back only halfway. His face stayed in shadow, but the boy looked straight at him as if the dark did not count. "I didn't mean," the child started, then stopped, embarrassed in the way children get when their heart says something before their manners can catch it. The man's jaw tightened once. A small movement, almost nothing. Then his eyes shifted past the mother, past the lamp, past the toy on the floor, to the lock on her door. The brass plate had a new scratch beside the keyhole. Thin, fresh, low enough that a tired adult might miss it, but not a man trained to notice where fear had touched metal. The mother saw him see it. "What is it?" He did not answer right away. Downstairs, a car door closed in the rain. The boy stepped back against his mother's leg, and the man moved before either of them understood why. He placed himself between the open apartment and the stairwell, one shoulder angled toward the darkness, his body filling the doorway without crossing into their home. "Lock this after me," he said. "You were leaving," she said. He looked once at the child, then at the hall beyond him. His voice stayed low. "I changed my mind." He reached back, took the paper cup from the child's trembling fingers, and set it carefully on the small shoe rack inside the door. Then he stepped into the cold hallway and stayed there. The apartment building was the kind that held every sound too long. Water moved in old pipes behind thin walls. A dog barked on the second floor, then went quiet, as if someone had touched its collar. Rain tapped against the stairwell windows in uneven bursts. Inside 3B, the mother kept one hand on the deadbolt and one hand on her son, while the man stood on the other side of the door without asking to come in. She told herself his name did not matter to him yet. Men like him did not learn the names of women carrying grocery bags up 3 flights after a double shift. They did not notice boys with cough syrup stains on their sleeves. But he had noticed too much already. She opened the door 3 inches wider. "You don't get to stand there without telling me why." The man did not turn around. He was watching the stairwell landing, where the fluorescent bulb blinked every few seconds and made the hall seem to breathe. "Your lock was touched. This building is old. Old metal scratches wide," he said. "That one is clean." She hated that she looked. She hated more that he was right. The mark near the keyhole was narrow and bright. a silver wound on cheap brass. She had locked that door before leaving for the diner at 4 in the afternoon. She remembered because Eli had asked if monsters could use keys, and she had told him monsters were not real while checking the chain twice. Her voice came out lower. Maybe someone got the wrong door. His eyes moved to the peeling number on the frame, 3B, then to the hallway floor, where rainwater had been tracked in by shoes heavier than hers. 2 prints near the wall, almost dry now. Too large for the old woman in 3A. Too clean for the teenage delivery riders who always left mud by the elevator. Maybe, he said. That was the first lie he gave her. And somehow it sounded like mercy. She opened the door only enough to see his profile. Sharp cheekbones, stubble dark against tired skin, a cut near his lower lip that had started closing without being cleaned properly. He wore no visible weapon, but the hallway felt crowded by what he could call with one phone. You need to leave, she said. I know. But he did not move. Behind her, Eli coughed into his sleeve. The man's eyes shifted through the gap in the doorway. He reached into his coat and took out a small brown pharmacy bag, folded at the top, still dry because he had kept it inside his jacket. He placed it on the floor without crossing the threshold. The mother stared at it. What is that children's cough medicine? The diner only had the adult kind. She looked back toward her son. How did you know? He counted his breaths between coughs. Eli looked down fast. Shy and exposed. The mother felt anger rise first. Because anger was easier than accepting that a stranger had paid attention while she was too exhausted to hear the pattern. Her hands smelled like fryer oil and lemon cleaner. Her shoulder ached from carrying laundry and a sleeping child up the last flight. She had been trying to survive the night. He had been reading it. You followed us, she said. I walked behind you. That's the same thing. No, he said. If I followed you, you wouldn't have seen me. The sentence landed cold. Not loud. Not threatened. Just true. The boy slid off the chair and came closer despite her warning look. He stopped behind her hip, peeking at the bag on the floor. Is it cherry? The man glanced down the hall once before answering. Grape. Eli made a face. Cherry works better. For coughs, for being brave. The man went very still. The mother expected him to dismiss it, or ignore it, or show the impatience adults showed when children explained the world in the wrong order. Instead, he reached into the other side of his coat and removed 2 wrapped mints from the diner counter. Red-striped, cheap, the kind left beside toothpicks near the register. He placed them beside the medicine bag. Then use these first. The mother should have shut the door. Every sensible part of her knew that she should have slid the chain into place. Called the police. Called the landlord. Called anyone whose danger had a badge or a maintenance key instead of a black coat and blood drying at the lip. But Eli stepped forward and picked up 1 mint like it was evidence that the world had not completely turned against them. He did not thank the man. He only held the candy in both hands and looked up. That was when the elevator downstairs groaned. The sound climbed the center of the building slowly. Metal cables. Old doors. A motor that always complained after midnight. The mother knew that sound. Everyone in the building knew it. But tonight the man's head turned before the elevator reached their floor. and the air around him changed so sharply she pulled Eli back without being told. He lifted one finger. Quiet. No drama. No panic. The child understood before the mother did. Eli pressed his lips together and held his breath with both hands around the mint. The mother felt the warm apartment behind her, the sink full of bowls, the dinosaur on the floor, the unpaid envelopes under the lamp. Ordinary things, suddenly breakable. The elevator stopped on 3. For 3 seconds, nothing happened. Then the doors opened with a tired scrape. No one stepped out. The man looked down. A folded receipt lay on the elevator floor. Pushed forward by the opening doors, white paper, wet at one corner. From the diner where she worked. Her name was not printed on it. But the time was there. Enist 42 p.m. The exact minute she had clocked out. The mother's mouth went dry. The man bent, picked it up with 2 fingers, and read the back. There was something written there in black marker. She could not see the words. She only saw his expression disappear, leaving behind something older and far more dangerous than anger. "What does it say?" she asked. He folded the receipt once and put it into his coat. "Lock your door," he said again. This time, she did not argue. But before she closed it, Eli looked through the narrowing gap and asked the question she was too afraid to form. "Did you come here because of us?" The man's eyes stayed on the empty elevator. "No," he said. The door clicked shut between them. The mother slid the deadbolt, then the chain, then stood there with her palm flat against the wood, listening to the man remain in the hallway. And for the first time that night, his lie frightened her less than the chance that it was almost true. By morning, the hallway outside 3B smelled like wet concrete, old carpet, and coffee from the woman in 2A who always burned the first pot. The mother opened her door with the chain still latched and found the Mafia boss sitting on the top stair, one elbow on his knee, his black coat folded neatly beside him. He had not slept. The paper cup from last night sat untouched near his boot. And beside it was the diner receipt folded into a square, so tight it looked like he had been trying not to read it again. He rose before she could ask whether he had stayed all night. He simply picked up his coat and looked past her shoulder to where Eli stood in dinosaur socks, holding the red-striped mint like he had kept it safe through sleep. "You still there?" Eli asked. The man looked at the boy, then down the stairwell. So far, it should not have comforted anyone. It was barely an answer. But Eli stepped out from behind his mother's leg, a little more. And the mother hated how quickly her son understood the shape of protection when it did not look like kindness. "I need to get him to school," she said. "No." The word was quiet. It still stopped her hand on the doorknob. She turned slowly. "You don't get to tell me what to do with my son. I'm telling you, the street below has been watched since 6. Her eyes moved to the window at the end of the hallway. The rain had thinned to mist. Across the street, under the awning of a shuttered check-cashing place, a man in a navy cap stood with a phone held too low to be useful. He was not looking up, which made it worse. People who wanted to seem innocent always looked away too carefully. The mother pulled Eli back inside. "You saw him before I saw 2 of them. One left when the bus came. The school bus, the one your son takes." Eli's face changed at the word bus. He was 8. Old enough to understand danger when adults got quiet. Too young to know where to put it. He looked at the man. Did they know my backpack? The mother's throat tightened. His backpack was blue canvas with a crooked astronaut patch she had sewn on after the original strap tore. It had his name written inside the front pocket in black marker. Ordinary details. Mother details. Details that suddenly felt like a map. The boss crouched just enough that Eli did not have to look up so far, but not so low that he looked harmless. They knew your building. That's enough for today. Eli nodded once. Serious. Then he lifted the mint. Do you want this back? No. You gave me 2. You kept 1 for later. The man's eyes stayed on the boy's face. Then keep it. There was a pause in the apartment after that. So small, the refrigerator hum sounded loud. The mother noticed the man had not stepped over the threshold. Even now, after deciding danger was real, he stood with one shoe in the hall and one hand near the frame, as if he understood that protection could become invasion if he crossed the wrong line. That detail got under her skin more than the pharmacy bag had. She moved to the kitchen and opened the drawer where she kept receipts. School forms, a screwdriver, 3 batteries that might or might not work, and the emergency cash she never called emergency cash in front of Eli. She picked up the phone. I'm calling the police. No. She faced him with the phone already in her hand. You say that again and I close this door. He accepted that without flinching. Call them if you want a patrol car for 20 minutes. Then it leaves. Whoever put that receipt in your elevator learns how scared you are, how fast you call, and who comes when you do. So I'm supposed to trust you instead? No. That stopped her more than if he had said yes. You're supposed to keep your son away from windows and let me fix what I can fix without making your life louder. Eli looked from one adult to the other, tracking the silence like a child watching weather. Then he reached for the cereal box on the counter, climbed onto the chair with the split yellow cushion, and poured too much into a chipped bowl without asking. The sound of dry cereal hitting ceramic filled the room. He pushed the bowl toward the empty chair across from him. The mother stared. Eli? The boy kept his eyes on the man in the doorway. He didn't eat. The boss looked at the bowl as if it was something more dangerous than the men outside. Then he looked at the mother, waiting for permission he would never ask for out loud. She did not give it. She also did not take the bowl away. He stepped inside only far enough to reach the deadbolt. Every movement in him changed once he crossed the threshold. He looked like a man measuring angles. Window to door. Door to kitchen. Kitchen to child. Reflection in the microwave glass. He took the screwdriver from the drawer, then glanced at the mother and held it up until she gave the smallest nod. For 10 minutes. The apartment filled with the careful sounds of repair. Metal turning. Chain plate tightening. Screws biting deeper into tired wood. Eli ate cereal one piece at a time and watched. The mother stayed by the counter with her phone in her hand. Ready to call. Ready to scream. Ready to be wrong. The man replaced the short screws in the strike plate with longer ones from a small tin he had carried in his coat. They were not new. Their heads were scratched, salvaged from somewhere else. He worked with the patience of someone who knew exactly how doors failed and exactly how to make them fail slower. You carry screws, Eli asked. I carry what doors need. Why? Because people trust doors too much. The boy thought about that with the seriousness of a child sorting the rules of the world. My mom checks ours twice. The screwdriver stopped. The mother looked away first. The man resumed. Slower. Then she's smarter than most. It was the first kind thing he said about her. He said it to the door. By noon, the navy cap across the street was gone. The boss made 2 calls from the hallway window, his voice too low for her to catch more than fragments. Move the car. Watch the rear alley. No one goes near the kid. When he came back inside, Eli had drawn something on the back of an overdue electricity notice. A square apartment, a yellow lamp, a tall black shape outside the door with arms too long and shoulders too wide. The child had colored the hallway blue and the inside orange. Eli pushed the paper toward him. That's you. The boss picked it up by the clean corner. Careful not to smudge the crayon. My coat isn't that long. Eli looked pleased. It is when you stand there. The man folded the drawing once and placed it inside his coat, behind the diner receipt. The mother saw where he put it. She saw that he chose the pocket closest to his chest. She saw that he looked angry about having done it. And still, when evening came and the hallway lights blinked on, she did not ask him to leave. She latched the chain while he stood outside again. And Eli pressed his small hand flat against the door from inside. After a moment, one knuckle touched back from the other side. Love, brief, almost invisible. The mother saw it. The child smiled. The man did not. By the second night, the mother had learned the Mafia boss did not knock like other people. He tapped once on the door frame, low, near the lock, then waited where the peephole could see him. No demand, no impatience, no hand on the knob, just one quiet sound that had already become different from the sounds Eli feared. The boy heard it from the couch and lifted his head from the blanket. That's him. His mother did not like the certainty in his voice. She looked through the peephole anyway. The man stood under the hallway light with a grocery bag in one hand and no expression on his face. She opened the door with the chain on. What now? Your back window doesn't latch. She stared at him. How do you know that fire escape? You climbed my fire escape. I checked your fire escape. That is not better. It is if someone else was going to use it first. The answer should have ended the conversation. Instead, it opened something worse, the image of someone outside Eli's bedroom window, 3 floors up, quiet enough to let the mother keep believing danger only came through doors. She unlatched the chain. He held up the grocery bag before stepping in. Window lock. Batteries. Grappe medicine. Eli groaned from the couch. Cherry. They were out. You didn't ask right. For a moment, the mother almost corrected her son's tone. Then she saw the man lower the bag onto the table and remove, from his coat pocket, 1 small bottle of cherry cough syrup, separate from the rest. He set it down without looking at Eli. The boy sat up. You found it. No. The man said, It found me. Eli accepted that as a reasonable adult lie and smiled into his blanket. The mother watched the boss turn away too quickly, as if the smile had cut closer than the men in the street. His tenderness never arrived in the shape people expected. It came disguised as preparation. A window latch, a bottle of medicine, fresh batteries for the flashlight, shaped like a green frog that Eli kept under his pillow because the hallway shadows moved when trucks passed outside. He knew about the frog light because Eli had told him through the door that afternoon while the mother was pretending not to listen. He had remembered. That was the part she could not explain away. He fixed the back window with the same quiet focus he had given the lock. Rain slid down the glass in silver lines. On the fire escape outside, the city hung dark and wet. All brick walls and trash bins and blue emergency lights passing somewhere too far to help. The boss tested the latch 3 times, then looked at the gap between the frame and sill, put his bed on the other wall. The mother folded her arms. I can't keep rearranging our life because you won't tell me who's out there. He turned. His eyes were steady. And for the first time, that steadiness did not feel like calm. It felt like restraint. You're not rearranging your life. You're keeping him away from glass. She wanted to argue. She wanted him wrong. She looked at Eli under the blanket, pretending not to watch them. One hand closed around the red-striped mint he still had not eaten. What was on the receipt, she asked. There it was. A wall she could feel without touching. Nothing useful. He said, "That's not an answer. It's the only one that keeps you from doing something brave and stupid." She laughed once. Sharp and tired. "You don't know me. I know you opened this door with your body in front of your child. That's common sense." No. Common sense would have kept the door closed. The words were not cruel. That made them harder. He had seen her fear and called it courage without softening either one. Then his phone vibrated on the windowsill, and the name on the screen had no letters, only a black square. He answered. His voice dropped into something Eli had never heard before. "Say it once." The apartment changed around him. The warm lamp, the blanket, the cereal bowl in the sink. All of it seemed to pull back. The man listened for 5 seconds. His eyes moved to the door, then to the boy, then away. "No one goes near the school," he said. "If they do, they answer to me before they answer to God." He ended the call. Eli had stopped pretending not to listen. The mother stood very still. The boss slid the phone into his coat. "He's staying home tomorrow. You don't decide that. The men who asked about his bus route do." The room went quiet enough to hear rain dripping from the fire escape. Eli's lower lip trembled once, and he bit it because he did not want anyone to see. He had a spelling test tomorrow. He had written the words on index cards and taped them beside his bed window. Planet. Brave. Enough. The mother knew every card because she had tested him while folding laundry at midnight. The boss saw the cards too. He walked to the bedroom doorway but did not enter. Eli's small room held a narrow bed, a cracked blue nightstand, the green frog flashlight, and the index cards curling at the tape edges. The man read them from the hall. "Spell window," he said. Eli blinked. Now. VNDOV. Planet. PLRNET. Brave. The boy paused. His hand tightened around the mint. Brave. The boss nodded once, as if the answer mattered. Enough. Eli looked at his mother first, then at the man. ANOUGH. Good. The boss said. Test passed. The boy's face softened with relief so sudden it almost broke the room. The mother turned away under the excuse of wiping the counter. No one had done that for Eli before. Not that way. The man had taken a ruined school day and handed back one small piece of it. Plain and serious. As if a child spelling words deserved the same attention as a threat report. Later. After Eli's cough medicine and half a peanut butter sandwich, the boy fell asleep on the couch. The mother reached to lift him, but the boss stopped her with one raised hand. Let him sleep there tonight, away from the window. I can carry my own child. I know. That was all he said. He stepped back, giving her room, and she hated again that he knew where the line was. She carried Eli to the couch corner and tucked the blanket around his legs. The boy stirred when thunder moved over the roof. Half asleep, he reached out blindly. Not for her hand, but toward the shape standing near the door. "Dad," Eli whispered. "Don't go yet." The word entered the apartment quietly. No drama, no music. Just a child speaking from the soft, unguarded place between fear and sleep. The mother froze with the blanket in her hands. The boss did not move at all. For 1 second, he looked less like a man who had been called the wrong thing, and more like a man who had heard a door unlock inside himself and knew better than to touch it. His eyes lowered to the child's hand, small and open on the edge of the couch. Outside, a car rolled slowly past the building, tires cutting through rainwater at the curb. The boss turned his head toward the sound. Whatever had opened in him closed again. But not all the way. He moved to the apartment door, checked the peephole, then turned the deadbolt himself from inside before stepping back into the hall. The mother found her voice. "You don't have to stay because he said that." His hand rested on the frame. "I'm not." It was the second lie he gave her. This one almost sounded like pain. He stepped outside and pulled the door nearly shut, leaving only the chain gap between them. Through it, she could see his shoulder settle into place beside the frame, facing the stairwell. The same position as last night, the same black coat, the same cold hallway. Only now Eli slept easier, and the mother stood in the warm apartment, listening to a dangerous man choose the other side of her door, as if he had already lost the argument with himself. By the third morning, the mother stopped pretending she did not check the peephole before she checked the clock. The hallway outside 3B had become part of the apartment now. A cold strip of borrowed safety where the Mafia boss stood, sat, listened, and made the building feel watched by someone more dangerous than the people watching it. He was gone when the sun came up, but the stairwell door had a fresh strip of tape across the broken latch. The newspaper shoved under her door was not today's paper. It was yesterday's diner menu. Folded around a new key, she picked it up with 2 fingers. A small silver key slid into her palm, tied to a strip of blue thread from Eli's torn backpack strap. For half a second, she thought the boss had left it. Then she saw the black marker on the paper. We know who he stands for now. The kitchen went very quiet. Eli sat at the table with his spelling cards spread in front of him, eating toast from the edges inward because he said the middle tasted safer. He looked up when the butter knife stopped moving in her hand. Children learned the temperature of a room before adults admitted it had changed. "What is it?" he asked. "Nothing," she said too quickly. He looked at the paper, then at her face, then toward the door. "Is it from the bad people?" She had used up too many no's already. "It's from someone who wants to scare us," she said. Eli picked up the spelling card for Brave and turned it over until the tape curled under his thumb. "Can we call him?" She did not ask who. The phone number had not been given to her. It had appeared saved in her phone sometime after midnight, under no name. Only a period. She had found it while setting Eli's alarm and nearly dropped the phone into the sink. Men like him did not ask permission to become reachable. They only made sure they could be reached. She pressed the period. He answered before the first ring finished. Inside, yes. Door locked, yes. Windows, yes. Eli, she looked at her son, pretending not to listen, with both hands around his toast. Here. Only then did the boss breathe. Not relief. Control. What happened? She read the message. Silence came through the line. Not empty silence. The kind with people moving inside it. A door closing somewhere. A car engine starting. Someone nearby receiving instructions without needing them repeated. Do not touch the key again. He said, I already did. Wash your hands. Her stomach turned. Why? Because I don't know where it was before your door. She moved before the fear could finish forming. Turning on the faucet, so hard water splashed the counter. Eli watched her scrub her fingers with dish soap. The cheap lemon kind from the diner supply closet. The smell filled the room. Bright and wrong. Who are they? She asked. They belong to a man who thinks fear is cheaper than bullets. He's been watching me give up ground for 2 years. The boss paused. He thinks showing up at your door proves it's working. That I've gone soft. Have you silence again? I gave up the West Docks. He finally said, she did not know what that meant in numbers, or territory, or blood. She understood enough from what it did to his voice. For us, she whispered. For myself, he said. The lie was almost tender now. She looked at Eli, who had stopped pretending not to listen. The frog flashlight clutched in his lap. The boss spoke again. They will test it once. What does that mean? It means today decides whether they believe me. And if they don't, they will. No boast. No heat. Just the shape of a fact he had already built. The call ended. By noon, the building became too quiet. The old woman in 3A did not turn on her television. The dog on the second floor did not bark. Even the radiator seemed to hold its breath. The mother kept Eli under the kitchen table with his spelling cards and the frog flashlight because children needed some part of fear to have rules. She stood at the counter and did not sit down. She could not sit down. At 1:32, the elevator opened. No knock came. That was what made it worse. The mother stood with the screwdriver in her hand. Eli sat under the table, lips moving silently through his words. Window. Planet. Brave. Enough. Footsteps stopped outside 3B. Then the boss's voice came from the hallway. You are early. Another man answered. Older than the ones before. Calm. Careful. You cost people money. I told them what it would cost. You gave away docks for a waitress and a boy. The mother flinched at the word waitress. Not because it was wrong, but because of how small he made it sound. Like a job could measure a life. The boss did not flinch. She could hear that somehow. Say his name. The older man laughed once. Who's the boy's? Silence. The mother's hand tightened on the screwdriver. Then slowly, she turned the deadbolt as quietly as she could and left the chain on. If something went wrong on the other side of that door, she would not be the one fumbling with locks. She would be ready. The man outside said, I do not know the boy's name. Good. The boss said, keep it that way. The older man spoke, You are making a family out of a weakness. The boss answered so quietly she almost missed it. No, I am making a warning out of a door. Something heavy slid across the hallway floor. A folder, sealed in clear plastic, came to rest against 3B's threshold. The mother looked down and saw the edge of it under the door. The older man said, "Sign it." And the docs are gone by morning. Already signed. You signed before I came. I signed before they knocked last night. Eli looked up at his mother from under the table. She pressed one finger to her lips. She understood now what the boss had done. He had chosen before the final test, before being seen as noble, before anyone could thank him. He had given away the piece of his world that kept the threat profitable because profit was the only language those men respected. And he had done it without asking her permission or waiting for her gratitude. The older man's voice sharpened. You are not thinking clearly. You mistake quiet for doubt. The hallway went still. Then the boss said something that made the mother press her palm over Eli's ear without knowing why. If another man from your side touches this building, I take more than docs. I take roots, names, judges, sons who think they are hidden better than this child was. No shouting, no threat performed for effect, just a map being unfolded in the dark. The older man did not answer for a long time. When he finally spoke, he sounded less certain. For them, the boss said, "For the door." The elevator opened again. Footsteps retreated. The doors closed. The building let out sound by inches, a pipe knocking, a baby crying downstairs, rain tapping the stairwell window as if the world had remembered how to be ordinary. The mother opened the door with the chains still on. The boss stood there, facing the elevator, coat dark from rain. One hand by his side. The plastic folder lay at his feet. You signed before they came. She said, yes. He looked tired in a way she had not seen before. Not the tiredness of a man who had been awake all night. The tiredness of someone who had carried a decision alone for longer than one night. You didn't know if they'd believe you. She said, I knew what they would lose if they didn't. That's not the same thing. No. He said. Eli slipped under her arm and pressed his face into the chain gap. Are you leaving now? The boss finally turned. He looked at the boy's small hands on the door, at the green frog flashlight on the floor behind him, at the mother's tired face framed by cheap wood and warm light. Then he crouched in the hallway, still outside the apartment, still on the other side of the line. I have to go downstairs, he said. Eli's mouth tightened. The boss reached into his coat and removed the crayon drawing. The black shape, the blue hallway, the orange room. It had been folded once, then unfolded and flattened, as if someone had carried it carefully and looked at it more than he meant to. I'm leaving this here, he said. Eli took it through the gap. Why? So I have a reason to come back for it. The mother looked away because the room had become too full for her to stand inside it untouched. Eli held the drawing to his chest. You promise? The boss's voice softened. Barely. I don't say that word unless I mean it. Do you mean it? The hallway waited with them? Yes. He stood and stepped back, just far enough to face the stairwell again. He had become someone a child expected to return, and he had chosen it with his eyes open. The next night, the hallway outside 3B was repaired badly, which somehow made it feel more real. The landlord had replaced the broken bulb with one too bright for the corridor, and the dent in the plaster had been covered with a square of paint that did not match the wall. The mother noticed both things when she came home from the diner with Eli half asleep against her side and a grocery bag, cutting a red line into her wrist. No men waited by the elevator. No navy cap stood across the street. No receipt slid under her door. Ordinary should have felt simple. It did not. Ordinary felt like something that had been defended while she was not looking. Eli woke when she set him down near the shoe rack. He blinked at the hallway, then at the empty place beside the frame. His small hand closed around the crayon drawing he now carried folded inside his hoodie pocket. He had insisted on bringing it everywhere, as if returning it safely mattered because someone had promised to come back for it. "He's late," Eli mumbled. The mother unlocked the door. He didn't say when. He said he'd come back. Yes. So he has to. Children trusted promises, as if the world respected grammar. Inside. She turned on the lamp. Warm amber filled the small room. The couch blanket was folded badly because Eli had tried to do it himself. The frog flashlight sat on the table beside his spelling cards. The word enough had lost its tape and curled upward at one corner. Eli went straight to it and pressed it flat with his palm. Enough. He read. His mother smiled before she meant to. "You know that one." He nodded, then looked toward the door. He should too. At opt tray. The tap came, low near the lock. Ons. Eli ran before she could stop him, then remembered the rule and froze 2 feet from the door, looking back for permission. That was the new shape of their life. Hope, then caution. A child learning both too young. The mother looked through the peephole. The Mafia boss stood in the hallway with rain on his shoulders and a small paper bag in his hand. No blood. No torn coat. Just him. Alone beneath the overbright bulb. Looking somehow less like he belonged to the building, and more like he had decided to belong to one door inside it. She opened with the chain on. Eli lifted the drawing through the gap immediately. "You forgot this." The boss looked at it. Then at the boy. "I did. You said you'd come back for it." "I did." Eli studied him with the seriousness of someone checking whether adults meant the words they used. "So you're not leaving?" The mother's breath caught. She did not correct the question. She had spent too many nights correcting the wrong things. The boss looked down the hall once, toward the stairwell where his world had first tried to reach them. Then he looked back at the child. "I will leave sometimes," he said. "I will come back." It was not the answer a lonely child wanted. It was the one he could keep. Eli thought about it. Like work. A faint shadow moved across the man's face. The kind that might have become a smile in someone safer. Something like that. "Do you have lunch at work?" The mother almost laughed. It came out as a breath she had to cover with her hand. The boss held up the paper bag. Inside were 2 cherry turnovers from the diner, still warm, and 1 black coffee for the mother. At the bottom, wrapped in a napkin, were 3 red-striped mints. Eli looked at them like treasure. "You found more brave candy." "They found me." Eli smiled. "They do that." The mother took the coffee through the gap. "Thank you," she said. He looked uncomfortable with the words, as if gratitude made him easier to wound than knives did. "Lock the door after me. You're leaving downstairs." Eli frowned. "Why?" The boss glanced at the stairwell, then back at him. Because some promises stand better from outside. The mother watched the man turn toward the stairs. At the landing, he stopped. Not because of a sound, not because of a threat, because Eli had stepped closer to the chain gap and whispered, very softly, "Good night." The boss's hand rested on the railing. For a moment, the old world and the new one both had hold of him. The old world knew his name in rooms full of men who feared him. The new one knew the way a child said goodnight when he was trying not to ask someone to stay. He looked back. "Good night, Eli." He said the name like a guarded thing finally allowed into the open. The boy went still, then smiled down at his socks. The mother closed the door slowly. She slid the deadbolt, then the chain, then rested her forehead against the wood. On the other side, his footsteps moved down 3 stairs and stopped. He had not gone far. Eli climbed onto the couch with one cherry turnover wrapped in a napkin and the frog flashlight tucked beside his knee. He did not turn it on. He did not need to. The hallway outside held the sound of a man breathing quietly near the stairs. Keeping watch without being seen, the mother turned off the kitchen light but left the small lamp burning. Warm amber settled over the overdue envelopes, the chipped bowl, the spelling cards, the dinosaur on its side. Ordinary things, still breakable, still here. Outside, rain touched the fire escape. Somewhere below, a car slowed near the curb, then kept going. The boss did not move. Eli's eyes grew heavy. Just before sleep took him, he whispered. He came back. The mother looked at the door. "Yes," she said. "He did."